You live a very interesting life. You get to travel all across the world, it seems like, and you're managing to do all of that by just full-time YouTube. We're gonna find out how you do it today. We're gonna get all your secrets. But before we do that, what's the most you've made in a month from YouTube?
Most I've made in a month is $9,000 American, but once you convert that into where we live, $11,000 Canadian, bit higher.
Okay, and what has your highest paid video made?
My highest paid video in American, around $15,000, and in Canadian, I think it converts to 20,000 or something like that.
Okay, and how much of that does the government know about?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
All of it. All of it. They know everything.
YouTube isn't the kind of business that works in cash anyway.
No. Yeah, it's all on paper, guys.
So we're going to get to the technicalities and how it works all later. But before we get to that, catch us up on your lore a little bit. How did you start with YouTube? What were you doing before? And how did it develop into what it is now?
Sure. So originally, I graduated from college, had 2 diplomas, did police foundations, and then I did electrical engineering. Didn't want to do electrical engineering, didn't want to be a police. So I actually ended up just becoming an electrician. Did about maybe a few years as an electrician, didn't like it, quit that, moved on and worked in the bar industry because, tips, good money, all that good jazz, right? And low hours. So that was better. And while I was doing that, the whole time I'm thinking, I want to do something online. Like, I want to work online, but I just couldn't figure it out. Fast forward to 2020, I'm like, this is the year. I want to be a travel YouTuber. So I traveled. It was 2020, did a bunch of videos.
You picked the perfect year to travel.
Yeah, exactly. This was January, right? January, started traveling. March came. Guess what happened? That thing happened. We shut down. So I'm like, okay, I come all the way back. I'm like, I don't want to quit YouTube. And at the time, obviously our jobs were sidelined. We were getting paid by the government because everything was closed. So funny enough, I actually reached out to you. We were friends, I would say about 4 years prior. And yeah, around 2016 when we met. And
interesting enough, for maybe like the real OGs that remember that watched me back in my old channel, we actually made a video together like way back.
Back in the day. Yeah, so I actually reached out to you and I'm like, hey, guess what? I'm doing YouTube. And I remember like his eyes just like widened up.
Man, it feels so good to have somebody who who's on the same grind as you. It's one thing to make it on your own, but when your friends can make it with you, you're bouncing ideas, you're in the same type of thing. It's just, I don't know, to me, it's amazing.
Yeah. The more you have, it's always like the better, right? Because it's always like 2 heads thinking, 3 heads thinking, or however many people you have in it. But I remember that day you're like, come over to my place. I'm going to teach you how to edit. I'm going to show you everything. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I learned everything.
I don't know about everything, but I got you started.
You got me started, and obviously all that feedback for your like years of being on YouTube really, I would say, fast forwarded my progress, not by a little, but I would say by like light years, right? Because within the first 9 months, I actually wasn't making anything. I wasn't monetized. It took me 9 months for my first channel to be monetized. And then after that 9 months, we started off with a few $100s. Still nothing significant. You can't really do anything with like a few $100, but I was still grateful, right? It was something. It was like a little spark, right? That, hey, something's there. So when everything shut down, I had to pivot from the travel stuff to another niche. I started the other niche. We were getting traction, but still not enough traction. And then, him and I would talk and he would always say, like, you got to reach a broader audience. So that's when I started doing more of like the top 10s, more of the storytelling, which was really hot back in the day. And
sorry, just to interrupt. Yeah. You said the top 10s, but I would guess it's okay if you dive in the niche because this is a channel that you don't.
Yeah, sure.
But what was the top 10s of what?
So it started off like top 10s of, actually, let me bring it back. we started with the travel channel. Then I started with a tattoo channel. It was more like the mistakes that I made in my tattoo journey. I just wanted to put that out there so other people don't make the same mistakes as me. Also, a little bit of guides, because at the time, not too many people were, information just wasn't available like that, like it is today. So I moved on from the tattoo stuff to, the tattoo help niche to tattoo top 10s. Let's do things like, 10 people who took their tattoos too far, 10 people who got blind getting eyeball tattoos, like really crazy stuff that I think the average person would go on and be like, whoa, that's crazy. I need to see what's going on there. Those were a huge hit for me. That was the year when I actually remember in March, the government stopped funding me because I actually started making over $1,000. And I remember going to him, I'm like, can you believe this? They're like effing me over here. They took my money. Screw it. I'm just going to like really dive into it. So then we go into like fourth gear and I'm just trying to go as viral as possible. And it worked.
So the virality, did it come with the top 10s of the crazy tattoo stuff, or did you pivot into something else after that? Or?
Yeah, so I would experiment, right? I would go for sensationalism, things like criminals, someone who was doing like 450 years in prison, how he got to jail, true crimes. I would just do my research, and if it sounded crazy to me, it probably sounded crazy to other people too. So I just would hammer that in. It wasn't a specific niche at that point. I would just be all over the place for the most sensationalism, sort of content.
Okay, so it started off with one idea, and then you tried to broaden the audience on that idea, and then you pivoted from that to an even broader audience, which could be like true crime related stuff, right?
Exactly like that. But then when we kind of move forward with this, with the algorithms that came out with, YouTube's new stuff, it's like, if somebody from this niche, once you gather like a whole plethora of subscribers from all these different niches, it starts becoming kind of counteractive, you know what I mean, towards your channel, and it starts hurting your channel, right? Because the people who came for the tattoo content wouldn't watch the true crimes. The people who came from the true crimes content wouldn't watch, something else. So later on, when I was at the end of that channel, it kind of hurted me. But throughout that, I would say 2-3 year mark, it was hot. We were making good money.
And just to clarify, you moved away from this channel eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved away from this channel. That was 2 to 3 years of doing very well. I was still on top prior to leaving in terms of like the money was good. You know what I mean? Especially because we live in Canada. The money was good. The conversion was good. And 2023 hit. Other countries started opening up. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to what I started and start traveling and make travel content. And the beginning of 2023, I kind of left that channel. I would still create videos, but my heart wasn't into it. And when your heart's not really into it, the audience kind of picks up, and it was just a whole mess of things, right? So that channel was just sidelined for me. And I started getting into travel content. However, by that time, by 2023, I guess I was in my 30s, and doing travel content, eating in front of a camera, going out, vlogging, compared to what I used to do behind the scenes, just being behind the computer desk, recording, editing, that was really fun to me. But the travel part, traveling as a vlogger, was completely different.
Was different from how you thought it would be.
Yeah, because I was a lot older at that time, right? And I guess my patience was a lot thinner. I was just like, I enjoyed just being behind the computer and making my videos like that, making my money like that. So I did about, I think, a year and a half of that, maybe a little less. But I would go 3 months in, 3 months out, 3 months in, 3 months out. So 6 of those months in 2023, I was out of the country, traveling, vlogging, bulking up on videos, and then coming back here, kind of like chilling, blah, blah, blah. And then 2024, I decided to quit that channel as well and do other stuff.
Also going to give a clarification. You do a channel now as well. You're still doing YouTube, but the niche is so... There is a lack of competition, so we're not going to mention what it is. But yeah, you're still doing
Yeah.
I'm on a different channel.
Absolutely. I'm still doing YouTube. I got this channel and then I'm starting up another faceless channel. So we're going to get that going. But yeah, all my money right now is strictly coming from YouTube. And mind you, I'm still making some money from the other channels. So it's still something. Some of them I'm making rent overseas whenever I'm out. Some of them it's like paying my phone bills or whatever. And then this one it's like whatever I make is either extra or savings or miscellaneous.
Okay, so would you say that YouTube is a skill and people that tried and failed with YouTube simply lack the skill?
Is it a skill? I would say like honestly anyone can do it as long as you just stick to it and you're willing to kind of grow and do what's necessary in this time and day to go viral or have your channel explode. Because I think the competition now is so high, right? Because you have all these channels who are actually investing in script writers, in video editors, thumbnail production, all this stuff. Whereas you and I, we do it by ourselves, right? So we kind of have a unfair disadvantage, but because we've kind of been in this scene, you know, we've been in it long enough to know how we can mitigate it.
Okay, so let's say we get a random person who knows nothing about it. Do you think that if you took them under your wing, you can teach them to start a successful YouTube channel?
Yeah, for sure.
So in that sense, it is a skill. It's knowledge that you've gained through years of practice that you can transfer onto this person.
Yeah.
So let's say you got a random person, right? You took them under you and they said, hey, I want you to start me a successful YouTube channel. I'm guessing at this point, you kind of have it into a system. So explain as much as you can how that system works. How does it start from choosing the niche? Why choosing a certain niche and not the other? How to title your videos? How to make your thumbnails? How to edit in a certain niche? Everything from A to Z.
Sure. So, whoa, that's...
I mean, that's a lot, but, you know, give us a general overview of it.
Okay, so the first one is obviously choosing your niche. I would say kind of be realistic with it. You can't really, you know, let's say you want to do Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Man, there's just so much competition out there and good luck getting in. I'm not saying you can't, but good luck getting in.
It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, it really is, right? Like, what makes you stand out as a new, like somebody completely new? Choose your niche. Choose definitely something you like because you're gonna stick to it longer. If it's not something you like, you're not gonna. And I'm gonna give you an example. I started doing a true crimes niche. The videos hit. They hit very well. However, that subject, I hate that subject. Anything about murder, horror, crime, I just don't like it. And it was heavily affecting me on a day-to-day basis. So even though the numbers were there, the performance was there, the potential is infinite because of how much stuff happens on a daily basis. I don't care. Keep the money. I don't want to be a part of this. You know what I mean?
It was messing with your head, right?
100%. I was walking down the street. I would see people behind me and it would kind of trigger. I'd be like, oh my God.
What is this guy going to do something?
Yeah, what's he going to do, right? So stuff like that. Choose a niche you like. From there, personally, I know me and you kind of have a difference with this. I don't make the videos unless I know the thumbnail for it and unless I know the title. If my title and thumbnail aren't catchy enough or aren't, you know, don't really click something off within the first second somebody looks at it, I don't even pursue it. I don't care how good the idea is. I don't care how good my video is. Because at the end of the day, if people aren't clicking your videos, it doesn't matter how good your video is. It's just not going to perform because your thumbnail is not intriguing and your title, what they read, isn't translating enough for them to be, I guess, curious about it, to want to know, right? So that's...
Sorry to interrupt, but going back to the niche thing, I've started, maybe even more, but that I can think of 2 channels now where one I did as a project for the channel that you're on now, where I tried to grow a faceless channel. And it flopped completely. I was posting every day and it was like commentary about YouTube boxing when it first came out. It could have been a quality issue, although I don't think my quality was worse than the other people that were doing it. So I guess looking back at that now, I picked the wrong niche. Another thing was horror. I tried making like a reading horror stories with AI, although you couldn't tell that it was AI. So I thought the AI voiceover was pretty good. The viewer wouldn't be able to tell. But anyways, the niche was reading horror stories that supposedly actually happened. And that flopped as well. So that's two instances where I picked the wrong niche. How do you go about finding the right niche?
Oh man, it's so personally, because I found this one niche that I'm in right now that was brand new, you know about it. It was brand new. Not many people can get into it because it requires traveling, however, a different kind of traveling. So because a lot of people can't get into it, it's a bigger barrier to entry, so to say. So, and one other thing is, for some reason, there's a massive audience for that niche that I'm in right now. And yeah.
Not even that specifically. In general, the next channel you're starting, you don't need to say what it is, but the hypothetical example of taking someone under your wing. So, okay, the first criteria is they have to be somewhat passionate about it and they have to somewhat like it. Mm-hmm. But how do you know that it's not too competitive? How do you check that?
Okay, so one metric that I do to check all of that is, okay, let's say you're doing a search for it. If smaller channels are going viral due to certain videos from that niche, then you know there's something there. If there's a bunch of small channels that are doing very well. But if it's just dominated by big channels, you know, the super famous people, and smaller guys aren't getting ahead, then I would personally kind of bow out. But if I'm seeing small channels do really well, then for me, that's a sign like, hey, I need to get in on this.
I would also say, to add on to that, would you agree with the statement that very broad general niches like make money online, they're kind of, I don't want to say saturated because you can still make it work, but it's harder. So maybe when you choose a niche, you have to pick something more specific.
Yeah, definitely. That one specifically is, I think, such a hard niche because the people in it are just so highly, you know, into it with their editing, their thumbnails, everything. So you're not only competing with a large amount of people, you're also competing with their production value as well. So it could make it harder unless, you know, you have a lightning in a bottle, something strikes, and for some reason, the audience just really connects with you and they're like, oh, I want to see his journey. So that's the only way. But yeah, finance, I personally, I'm bowing out.
So unless you're either really charismatic, you have crazy results to show you just made a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle, as I'm finding out now. But yeah, so going back to the niche, it has to be specific. You have to like it. And if smaller channels are starting to pop off, then that's a good sign as well.
For me, yeah, that's a great sign.
Okay, so if it meets that criteria, then the niche is good.
Yeah. Also trends, right? If you can hop on a trend, but then later convert, you know, because trends die. That's the thing. When trends die, you have to kind of convert. But let's say there are channels based around drama that there are certain people who are like lightning rods for views. You know what I mean? And I've seen a lot of channels literally blow up because they only talk about that one person. Drama sells, right? And when this person's hot, they're hot, you can make your views, blah, blah, blah. As long as you can kind of convert that afterwards.
Would you say another aspect of a niche is that it appeals to a North American audience?
Yeah, definitely. Like, listen, here's the thing. With RPMs are, you know, how much you make per 1,000 views. With RPMs, depending on what country you're watching, you're kind of at their mercy. Let's say if your audience is from India or Bangladesh or something like that, from those countries specifically, you're going to get a really low RPM. And for me, it's kind of not even worth exploring. Whereas if you're going for audiences from Canada, US, you know, kind of the Western cultures, the ones where advertisements pay a lot, then you're going to make a lot of money. Like, we've seen some crazy RPMs. My RPMs personally haven't been crazy. It's just I make up for the amount of views. They haven't been bad, but, you know, I know
They're not as high as it would be in a niche like mine.
no, definitely not. Because yours is like, I think like starting 10 or something like that. And we've seen it range up to like what?
60, 100 sometimes. Insane numbers.
Insane.
The highest I've gotten on this channel, I think, is at $17 RPM, which is pretty good. But, that's great, but it has the added challenge of it's a harder niche to crack.
Yeah.
Unless you just go into very specific niches within finance, as we talked about before.
And get a kind of core audience. And then those core audiences with the finance niche, I've noticed there's such a hardcore based audience. They kind of want to see the journey. And in terms of sponsorships, I think there's a lot more sponsorship availabilities in that niche compared to other niches.
Okay, so the title. How do you go? What makes a good title? What makes a bad title?
A good title is something, in my opinion, that kind of intrigues the audience, because we scroll really fast, right? So if you can intrigue their mind, you intrigue it first with the thumbnail. If your thumbnail is something so crazy that they stop, you have about 1 or 2 seconds for them to look at the title and be like, hey, is this worth clicking? Am I curious enough? Kind of make your audience curious as to what your video is about. If they're curious enough, they're going to click. And then lastly is obviously the video itself.
I remember going back, you said something, you gave me advice for the title that really stuck with me. And that was, if you have a broad title, like I made $5,000 doing whatever, or I tried XYZ hustle, then you're going to compete with every other video that has that title. But if you have a very specific title, let's say, I'm just giving an example here, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but I can't believe this happened while I was doing that. Something to intrigue the audience, right? Something that you don't necessarily always see. You'll always see I tried this, but you won't always see this happened while I tried that.
Yeah.
The niche is better if it's specific, but the title as well is also better if it's more specific.
Yeah. And I noticed like YouTube's rolling this thing out where your title doesn't even kind of have to represent your video in a sense. Like, let's just say exactly what you were talking about. I made $4,000 doing this. You're competing with everybody who's ever written the words, I made 4,000 or whatever doing this. But if you can title it in a very intriguing way, and have kind of your description and tags find your people, because right now with the AI and everything that YouTube has for their algorithms, your video is going to go to whoever it's meant for, no matter the title, right? So you don't have to put in the title, I made $4,000 doing this. Find a way to like intrigue your audience with something shocking. You know what I mean? If you can do that, your video will go towards them and they're more likely to click because it's a curiosity aspect.
Also, just to clarify, I think you can give it a generic title like that if you're one of the big guys.
Yeah. For a small guy, oh man, like you're kind of handicapped, as a small guy.
You're playing the game on veteran mode.
Yeah. Just hope like you kind of strike. Because I've seen like certain channels who made 2 videos and both their videos are mad viral. Hey, good for you, the anomalies, but personally, I'm not an anomaly myself. So just speaking for myself, I have to do everything I can to kind of stand out from everybody else.
What about the thumbnails then?
Thumbnails, man. It's the first thing people look at, right? When you're scrolling, the thumbnail is always the first thing anybody looks at. So like I said before, make sure whatever your thumbnail is, it catches the audience's attention. Because if it catches their attention, the second thing they do is read the title. And that's the deciding factor whether they're willing to click or not click, really.
How do you go about making your thumbnails? Do you kind of look at your competition and try to emulate that, or do you try and do something different?
It depends. Like, let's say we were doing the top 10 channel that I used to do before. I would make it as crazy as possible. The most shock value I could get out of that thumbnail for the person just scrolling by to be like, whoa, what is that? I have to click that. Right.
And also editing in the video. How much does that matter?
I mean, in this day and age, editing is everything. However, I am kind of noticing a pendulum shift where people are more into, I don't know what the word is.
Organic?
Organic, yeah. They kind of want to feel, something towards you. Whereas like people are kind of over that highly edited Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Speaking for myself as well, whenever I see videos that are just constantly this popping up on the screen, everything's popping up, just it's like a monkey's dancing right in front, like, hey, pay attention here, pay attention there. In the beginning, it was cool because I could appreciate it because it was new. It was kind of like revolutionary. But now, in my opinion, just personally, it's sort of been played out. And I kind of like when there's not too much of that going on.
Yeah, you kind of want to feel a connection towards that creator in a sense, right?
And it's too commercialized when it's that, at this point, generic editing.
Yeah, it's all the same now.
Yeah, so in a way, you kind of have to be unique with the editing as well. It can't just be the generic thing that everybody else is doing, because I've seen that a million times, right?
Yeah.
So the niche has to be specific. If we're going to just try to summarize all the points. The title has to be specific. The thumbnail has
I would say, I wouldn't use the word specific. I would say the title has to strike curiosity, like something rather than specific.
Okay, yeah, that's
for my end.
That's a better description of it as well. It has to strike curiosity. It can't be the same, I tried this.
Yeah. Who, if you're a small channel trying to do I tried this, who are you for the average person to care, right? Realistically, they're not going to click. And if you're after the views, you really have to strike curiosity in the average person.
I don't think that it can't work if you do that, right? But it's just a higher likelihood.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking probabilities, right? More chance of success rather than...
That's for the title. The thumbnail has to be somewhat different from everybody else.
I would say the thumbnail just has to stand out, right? Do what you can to make it stand out, because man, the thumbnail games have evolved so much, and depending on your niche, like, good luck. I hate to say it like that, but good luck. Make it stand out. Mm-hmm. Like, some people I think overstimulate with a million different words in the thumbnails, and it's like this small and you can't really see what's going on, and just make it clear, make it bold, make it stand out.
Also, I would think if the niche is good enough, then your title or thumbnail won't matter that much,
Yeah. But specifically for mine, the newer niche that I'm doing, the title and thumbnail, I mean, I try to make it as crazy as possible, but honestly...
You feel like it's the niche carrying you?
Yeah, the niche is carrying. It's the tidal wave of the niche.
In a sense, if you had to rank them, then would you put the niche choice at the top?
Well, yeah. Ideally, like, if you have this like golden niche, then you're set. But I would say for the average person, I would say title and thumbnail are everything. And then, assuming you're not choosing the most heavily saturated niche, right? Mm-hmm. Man, your title and thumbnail, I can't even specify, is everything. I don't even make videos if I don't have titles and thumbnails ready.
Okay, so title and thumbnail is the first thing that you think of when you make the video?
Yeah, personally.
I don't do that. I think of the video first, what's going to be in the video, how I'm going to edit it, and I think of the title and thumbnail last.
Yeah, you also have like a super highly edited good video coming out. So I think you solely rely on your video.
Honestly, man, I think back in the day, the kind of editing that I do now on my channel would be considered good, but the level has gone up so much that my editing is just meh.
It's just because your niche is also heavily saturated with these people who hire editors, thumbnail creators, and
or just some people go all into that.
Yeah,
they just try harder.
Yeah.
And props to them. But also I've seen, as a personal example that I could give, there are creators who have way better editing than me, better thumbnails than me. But their videos don't necessarily get more views because, in my opinion, if I had to say what it was, it just feels a little bit less organic. So quality is not as black and white as great editing, Mr. Beast type editing, Mr. Beast type thumbnails. Quality can be in the sense of it's organic, it's authentic.
It's one of those things, like, if the audience really connects with you, and there are some people who have that it. Personally, I don't have that it, so I'm just throwing that out there. I rely on the external factors to get me to where I'm going, but there's some people who you just gravitate towards, and man, they can make anything work. And I've seen that with so many different niches. They put the minimum amount of effort, but their personality is so relatable, or there's just something about them that just connects with you, right?
But these are unicorns, right?
Yeah, 100%. I would say those are anomalies, right?
Yeah, this is not the average person.
No.
But if we're going back to the average person, right, they have to make sure that all the factors are aligning towards their side. Niche, thumbnail, title. What do you use to edit your videos, and what do you use for your thumbnails?
So I use Premiere Pro to edit my videos, and you were the one who taught me that. I kind of don't want to move away from it.
It feels too comfortable at this point.
Yeah. It's just too easy. It can do anything for you, and once you get the hang of it, it's just boom, 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 boom. Go. And thumbnails, this is actually going to surprise people. I use Canva, which is...
Canva?
Yeah. A lot of people use Photoshop, blah, blah, blah. So I use Canva, and if I have to make harder edits, I would move on to GIMP. And that's just because I don't want to pay for Photoshop. I'm cheap.
GIMP and Canva.
Yeah.
Interesting. I use Photoshop, which recently I've been dabbling a little bit more on.
Photoshop's the best. I would recommend Photoshop.
Highest learning curve too, though.
Yeah. There's so many videos out there that you can just...
But I think your thumbnails are better than mine. So that goes to show that you don't need the fancy...
Yeah, you don't really need fancy stuff to make good thumbnails. I mean, it does help. It definitely does help. But, you can do with very little.
Let's talk about some of the failures. What are some of the things that you've tried in these channels that you've failed on? And are there channels that you've tried that have failed as well?
Yeah. So I remember last year, I tried a channel in a niche where I'm like, okay, I see an opening here. Didn't work. I spent about 3 months on it, just banging out videos, going like really hard with the edits. My thumbnails were insane. My titles were insane. Just very little progress. Had to cancel that out. But then that's the thing with the niche, man. If you find like a nice niche, you can weasel your way in. Other failures is just sometimes certain videos just don't hit, right? And you just don't know why. And I think every YouTuber is kind of at the mercy of that top 10 analytics, where like you release a video and you're comparing it to your last 10 videos. And when it's on low ranking, it kind of plays with your head.
Something that I've started to do recently, and maybe you can say if you're also doing the same. I used to look at the stats and I used to study them religiously of my videos. So the CTR, how it's evolving, what threshold does it need to hit for my video to blow up? CTR means click-through rate of the thumbnail. The average view duration, because according to Mr. Beast and like some other YouTube people, if you have a great click-through rate and if you have a great average view duration, then your video theoretically should go viral. That's how they simplify it. I tried to make a science out of it. I tried to crunch numbers and I couldn't. Videos with seemingly horrible stats would go viral after at some point, and videos with amazing stats, way better than all my other videos, would just flop. Have you had a similar experience?
Absolutely. I would say like in my first channel with the top 10s and stuff, I was at the mercy of the analytics. Always, okay, what's the average duration? Is my CTR high? Blah, blah, blah. As I continued, because I'm just banging out so many videos, I just could care less. And I just make sure my thumbnail, my titles are good, and I let the rest do the work. And I know exactly what you're talking about, because sometimes your videos have such high stats and for some reason they just don't perform. Whereas I've personally had other videos where the stats are so low and for some reason they just go insanely viral. So for me, these days, I don't even care about that. I just try to make the best videos I can, put the best thumbnails, put the best titles, and if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, on to the next, no problem.
If somebody is starting YouTube today from scratch, they don't know anyone who does it, all they can sort of get is just like online tutorials. Maybe they get like a Udemy course or something like that. How long do you think it will take the average person to see success on YouTube?
Oh man, that's so hard to say, because I actually have a few friends who started it and they still haven't been monetized because they just don't do what's necessary. I think if it depends. If you do what's necessary, man, it really depends on the person and kind of the route you take. So many different factors, right? It could take you up to a year. Like my first channel, like I said, took me 9 months to monetize. My later channels, 2 months. My newer channel, a month and a half. So obviously that came with experience. However, if you're new, it kind of depends on what skills you're bringing. If you have absolutely no no editing background, no thumbnail background, no knowledge of this stuff, it's definitely going to take you a lot longer. It could be up to a year or more. Like I know some people who've tried for 3 years on YouTube and they haven't done any significant numbers.
To give some context to that, I used to have a previous fitness channel, for those of you that don't know, which I did for 8 years, scaled it up to 190 something thousand subscribers at its peak. And then when I started this channel, the one that you're watching now, it took me 6 months to monetize. And that's someone who I would say I had experience in the game, right? And 6 months, I thought I was going to get it in like 2-3 months most. It took me 6 months.
I would also say it's because you were in a very competitive niche, like very competitive. Because a lot of these people in those niches, I feel are kind of like, what's it called? Snake oil salesmen, stuff like that. So they'll say what they want to say just to get the audience. And it's very intriguing when someone says, oh, I made $4,000 a month doing this. I want to know how you made $4,000 a month doing this. I would click it. They make it very sensational, where I feel like we've talked about this. You take a very honest route with it. So I think it's an uphill battle.
Going back to the whole make sure it appeals to North America thing. I know this is kind of random, but I just thought about it now. How do you check that?
With your analytics. What do you mean? Like prior?
Prior, yeah.
Oh man, that's a tough one, because I personally, by the end of my run on the first channel, I was appealing a lot. Like the last few months, I was appealing a lot to South Africa, and they have a very low RPM. So that kind of brought down my RPMs as well, the average. Man, it's just one of those things. Sometimes if the barrier to entry is kind of different, let's just say a business that you can only do in the West, I doubt those countries are going to watch, right? Realistically. But then like other things, maybe looks maxing, you would know.
I made a looks maxing video. It got like 11 or 12,000 views. I can't remember. But either the top or very close second is India. And personally, it wouldn't be worth it for me to continue in that niche because of the very low RPMs. Sponsors also they check your analytics before reaching out to you. And if you show that majority of your audience is from Bangladesh, India, one of these places.
It depends like on the ad, right? They really want to appeal to the Western audience, I would say, from what I've noticed as well. It's like if it is from those countries, unfortunately, they kind of back out of it. So you kind of do get handicapped in that sense. So
you have to do your best guess beforehand to whether you think this topic will appeal to a mainly North American audience.
Even that's not guaranteed though. Like I would say the true crimes one that I did, just the separate true crimes channel that I did prior to quitting it, that was a purely American based audience. My American audience was so high. It's just for some reason, the American audience loves that sort of niche. Hey, it's up for grabs if anyone wants it. Like, you can go crazy. If you're into that stuff, there's a lot of money to be made, in my opinion.
And going back to my example, I left my fitness channel because of the very high Indian viewership. I hate to single them out. They just happen to be the one. It could have been any country that has low RPMs, but my RPMs were extremely low.
Yeah, at that point, it kind of doesn't make sense to put in so much effort when you're making like $2 a video. It just, how are you gonna do a full-time living making $2 a video, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do what makes sense for you, I would say. Listen, if you like the subscribers, kind of like the count, I'm famous, blah, 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 knock yourself out. But if you're trying to do this for a full-time living, then you do have to navigate smartly around that.
Would you say your life as a full-time YouTuber is as glamorous as it sounds?
I mean, like, what's glamorous to you, right? I know some people get this kick off, oh, I have this many subs, blah, blah, blah. For me, that novelty wore off years ago, right? I just want to be quiet. I just want to make my money, and that's it. In terms of glamorous, I love what I do. I love making videos. I love editing. I love just the whole process of it, especially while I'm abroad. In 2024, I spent 9 months traveling, and I was only in Canada for 3 months. And obviously I'm back now to see family and friends, blah, blah, blah. But man, that time being abroad, just taking my laptop to a coffee shop, it's just, for me, that's the perfect life for me.
When I think glamorous, I think, look at the videos that advertise how to do like YouTube automation or anything like that with YouTube. They're going to put laptop on a beach. They're going to put some guy chilling, having his coffee. It's a nice sunny day. Is it actually like that?
For me personally, yes. Because, man, you could put me in a coffee shop. I could have like a $1 coffee with my laptop, knowing that my rent is paid, my food is paid, I have my motorcycle. After I finish work, I can just go for rides. I can go to the beach, go to the gym, do whatever I want to do. For me, like, that little simple life is just perfect, right? Obviously, I don't have like the crazy sports cars, like the big houses, those crazy like LA parties. Like, I don't do any of that stuff, nor can I afford to go with those sports cars. But just that simplicity of being free, knowing my bills are paid, knowing I'm making savings, knowing I'm doing a little investing on the side. For me, that's the best case scenario. Much, much better than what I used to.
So in your opinion, because you've tried both a 9-to-5 stable career and you've also tried YouTube, how would you rank each out of 10?
Obviously, the stable career is the safe route, right? Like, man, it is so easy to just have a job, go to work, know that at the end of the month, your bills are paid. Whereas here, like I'm sure you know, with YouTube, you don't know. You're at the mercy of the algorithms, or let's just say an influx of people come in your niche, or like just so many different variables, right? You don't know how much you're making tomorrow. You don't know how much you're making next year. You don't know how much you're making next month. So it's definitely a lot more stressful. But at the same time, man, if I was just making, this is me, don't take my advice for anything, I would be happy doing YouTube and only making $1,000 a month, going traveling, because we all know like traveling abroad is a lot cheaper than being here. You can actually sustain yourself on $1,000 a month. Even if I was making $1,000 a month, I would still be doing YouTube compared to working an actual job, because it's like, I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. Even coworkers, there's just so much that comes with it that turns me off, that the smallest amount of money I make, I would continue doing that and try to make that as big as I possibly can to,
So rate them out of 10 each.
YouTube for me, it's 10. I know you disagree, but I enjoy doing it, man. Something about taking your laptop to a cafe, writing scripts, editing, blah, blah, blah. That's a 10 for me. It might not be for everyone. For me, it's a 10. Working a real job, man, 0.
0?
I mean, like, I enjoyed bartending. So bartending was fun, but you think of like the crappy people you meet, like who your bosses are, they're on drugs, they're alcoholics. Well, my bosses were. So
I mean, that's not a given.
Yeah, your bosses might not be, but mine were.
So maybe you've had a real bad experience with it.
Listen, I enjoyed bartending, but I just maybe didn't like being around certain people. But bartending was good. However, like working a real job as an electrician, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great money. You're set. You're really set. Like, you're making a lot of money, especially in our country. And your life is good, but I just didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm. If I had to give a rating, I would give a normal job, personally, for me, 3. And I would give YouTube 8.
Oh, that's actually high. I thought you were going to say like 6 or something.
No. It's a great job. All things considered, it's an amazing job. If you're like a lifestyle vlogger or something, I would hate that. Then I would also put that as a 3, because I would hate to just have the camera constantly on my face, go out, camera on my face. But if you can make videos in your own house, in your own privacy, no boss, your own business, you work your own hours, and you're still making a living and you're not tied down to any single place, it's very hard to beat that.
Yeah.